Are you ready for a not so giant episode for Giant Man? Hello and welcome to Modern Toy Fair. I'm your host, Mr. Modern Toy Fair, and I am joined by the founder of the NEC Illuminati, the delayer of shipments, the procrastinator of pre-orders, the perfect person, my YouTube wife, Mrs. Modern Toy Fair, Jarmar_Games. But that's not all. I'm also joined by the man Modern Toy Fair has full custody over, the man Optimus Prime Popty refuses to stop, the Twilight Knight, the Master of Mac, the three-pump Trump of taking the show off the rails, Nate. How you fellas doing?
I need some sort of wizard title.
Wizard title?
I want a wizard title.
Well, then I guess you're going to have to do something wizardly.
But I want to be the wizard of something.
You know who's good at coming up with titles?
Who?
Sukma. Just let them come up with one, and then Michael will steal it because he is the
As I specified on the last episode,
I
went back through my messages, and he never once could I find a time where he came up with that name. He had simply referenced it, I believe, in the chat of the live of thing, which is where a lot of the names have come from, except for like Master of Mac. And most of the names have come from things that happened during the show.
Tell them
I didn't give specifics.
That's true.
Have to
that is true.
subscribe to the Patreon episode.
Maybe it did come from the chat.
Which there's free trials of our Patreon. Patreon.com/Modern Toy Fair. Links in the description below.
There's so many new subscribers. Welcome. Go check out our Patreon. It's worth the $5 that you might even be able to get a free trial of. And you can watch where all the titles come from.
And you can watch the episode about how Modern Toy Fair came to be. And you can watch the episode about the rise and fall of Figuratively Speaking. There's a bunch of different options. So, again, free trials. Link in the description below.
You can watch.
But only watch one.
We did a stream. We did a stream where we watched the new Avatar movie together. We did that. Yeah, we did. We just didn't. It just didn't. We took it down. Members only had
copyright issues.
Copyright.
We played the entire movie. That was the problem.
We did play the entire movie. The problem was we turned the camera on to the wrong end. So rather than getting our reaction, it just recorded Avatar.
So while we were sleeping in the background, so I don't think it really mattered what our reaction was.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because I didn't see the movie.
Me either. I don't have 3 hours or 4 hours.
Either do I. Either do our viewers. So we're talking HasLab. We are a little late to the game here. The HasLab was announced about if you're watching this 2 weeks ago, because
if they're doing what else? If they're watching it 2 weeks ago, but you're not giving them another option, even if they're listening to it.
If they're watching, I'm not saying if they're watching this. I'm saying if they're watching this, it was 2 weeks ago that it was announced.
Okay.
Because we record in advance, but also
just
behind semantics.
You were like, if you're watching this.
Oh, as opposed to listening to it.
Right, but it would be the same.
Well, we have audio listeners too.
Right, but it would be the same amount of time.
I'm aware. Regardless,
okay.
It would be because we record early, but also late to the game. It's a couple weeks. Anyway, they announced it. It was very clearly teased that it was going to be Giant Man. There was even rumored before that. I don't think anyone really questioned it. So it is Giant Man. He is almost 2 feet tall. He's like 22 inches tall. He's fully articulated fingers, which is kind of creepy, but I guess they've technically done it for everything, just not to this like extent where every knuckle is done. He has swappable face plates, which I assume you have to like peel his mask off to put on. I don't know. They didn't really show how that works. Currently, it has 40 days left at the time of recording, with 4,497 backers out of, I believe, the 10,000 it needs to get funded. And then we do have 2 tiers that they have announced. If we hit 12,000 backers, there will be a zombie faceplate with zombie antennas. And if we hit 14,000, you get a full scroll head. So you can have that as an option as well. I think that's also to entice people to maybe buy more than one, because then you have multiple options, especially if the scroll versus like normal. And they haven't announced, tier 3 and 4, and I don't know if that's out of lack of confidence if this will hit that or not. But
what makes you think there's going to be a 3 and 4?
Are there always a 3 and 4?
Nope,
I thought
not necessarily.
There were. Nope. What ones haven't had 3 and 4?
I mean, technically, the Ghost didn't have 4. It was only 3.
Oh.
The Hera was included in the initial offering.
Okay.
And there was 3 figures. Sometimes they have 4, sometimes they don't. I think unless they offer something else, we'll get into it. Because I think there's a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah,
well, okay, all right. I haven't really been paying attention to what the online chatter is about this. I do see that it is a slow mover out of the gate, at least. It's only about half. It's been up 4 days, I think.
Yeah.
But what I do see is kind of an initial reaction and a little bit of the lukewarm reception is because it's for a figure. It's one large figure, and then the tiers are extra faceplates and changes and things like that, not any new figures. And I think HasLab has essentially screwed itself into having to offer figures now as part of tiers. I think that's one of the reasons that the Ghost did as well as it did, is because these were 4 exclusive figures that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else, then with the additional option to buy 2 more. So that gives you 6 figures total. I think the Dragonfly, I think it's now coming with 5 figures. The Rancor made many mistakes in its run, but its initial ones were only showing tier unlocks of cardboard backgrounds and rocks and things like that. It wasn't until that they started offering figures that the thing started to progress and actually came very, very close. A lot of people like to say it failed miserably. It only came within like 500 of funding. Granted, it didn't come anywhere near hitting its unlocks and things like that, but still, that's not bad. It's not good, but it's not as terrible as people want to make it think that it is. The one that didn't go well was the Engine of Vengeance or whatever, and they did offer quite a bit of figures. However, the initial base offering was lukewarm and expensive. So here they kind of went in the opposite direction. Here's an action figure of a very large character that we've made it the largest single hero figure that you can buy, tons of articulation, extra options, things like that. And it's only, because we're talking relative here, only $200. One of the more inexpensive HasLab projects, with the exception of the 2 Transformers ones, ironically. The 2 recent ones from the Victory series. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And again, I think Hasbro put themselves in that corner. Because when they get scared, then they start throwing figures. I mean, look how many figures came with Galactus. What was it, like 4, 5?
I think it was 4.
Eventually that came. Yeah. And some of those are, were newly tooled or going to be used for the library later on and things like that. That was pretty incredible. Like I said, we're getting 4 figures in the Ghost with an additional 2, which they still haven't worked out how that is going to be available as a purchase option, but still, that's happening. And again, the Dragonfly, I think we're getting 5. But that's also a way to keep the price point lower because you're only getting the 1 figure. So it's like, what do you want, fans? Do you want the option for more figures? Then I feel like the price of the entire thing has to go up.
Yeah.
As like someone who's just watched these from afar and not, obviously like partaking in any of the HasLabs, and I am so always confused by the numbers and expectations and all that jazz. But like seeing this one and hearing initially, the first thing you said was like, "Oh, it's gonna be Giant-Man." I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess that kind of makes sense." And then you said $199. It's like, okay, well that seems fairly cheap. And then again, what all does it come with? To me, as someone who's outside looking in, which I think is probably a great perspective to hear, I feel like $200 makes sense. I understand like the weird obsession with the figures, like having another figure in it, which again, from someone from outside perspective, I kind of just assume that that's like your way of like getting exclusive figures and stuff like that. So like like you said, they basically have kind of forced themselves into this. And I'm pretty sure on one episode we talked about one of the HasLabs of like, is the figure being a part of HasLab now like the point of it in a sense? And it kind of feels like that's the case. Like, but I just,
it was a total accident. And not to derail you for a second, but just to throw out there, the very first one, which is the sail barge, you know, those it was lacking. You know, they only they needed to make 5,000. They only got to 8 in its entire run, so it wasn't a smash success. And like towards the middle part, because they saw it was lagging, then they decided to throw in an extra incentive figure, which was a yak face figure that was already out in the main retail line. It gave it a different card, a coin, and a different accessory. And so that was the beginning, even though that figure was in the main line.
So maybe that's like something, but I guess it goes back to the thing of like, you start with one thing and then you got to keep upping the ante every single time. So now like you couldn't do that again because of like, oh, well, that's just something that already exists. You're just changing it. Like instead of it being a benefit or like a bonus, now it's kind of like a negative. But I just don't understand, like, again, I don't know the outcry. I don't know if people hate this or if people love it, but obviously
I don't
it's
either.
not doing that great if it's only at 4. Like I saw something when I was looking this up because I was doing my research, but it was like 4,000 like right off the rip. And now you're saying like almost 5 days or so later, it's only an additional 900. That's doesn't seem like
497.
400. So that's not even like, that's not like I don't want to call it smash success, but that's not like a huge interest.
No.
And I'm just curious to know, like, what would you want? Because 199 to me sounds like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. I'm also the person who's like scoffing at a fucking. I'm trying not to cuss them.
We cuss all the time on here. Why are you suddenly against it?
I was like, were we doing a clean thing the last episode we recorded? But then we did, anyways. But yeah, so I'm the one that like got pissed off about the turtle layer. That's $300. But do I see value in getting a really like large figure if that's what you are looking for your setup and you want Giant-Man? Then $200 seems like not a terrible price.
Well, and I also look at it too. Like it's 2 feet tall. It's 24 inches. I mean, that's
22
huge.
inches. It's not 24.
Oh, that's 24.
Sorry.
I'm pretty sure it's 22 because they showed a comparison of it, the Sentinel, and Galactus, and it's shorter than the Sentinel. And I'm pretty sure the Sentinel's 24, but I could be wrong. Are you pulling it up?
I think you're wrong.
I mean, I'm looking at it.
Because it shows the 6-inch Captain America in 24.
It says 24? Then we'll say it's 24. Yeah. I thought I saw that it said 22. I did say it's
24.
Give the extra 2 inches to Giant-Man, okay?
Yeah.
Let him have those extra 2 inches. Yeah. Over here.
Yeah, 24-inch Giant-Man. 91 points of articulation, including 29 in each hand. So that's like 60 points of articulation in just hands. So yeah, think about it for a second, like in the actual like retail world, like, they throw in like a Build-A-Figure and, it's $150 to collect that entire wave. Yes, you're getting 6 other figures. I understand this. But you get also this Build-A-Figure that you really wanted that maybe you didn't want the figures of, and it's probably only going to be about this big.
Yeah, it's usually not
like
more
Build-A-Figures
than like 8 inches tall.
Yeah.
What was the Beyond the Spider-Verse thing? The Build-A-Figure that was sold separately.
Cyborg Spider-Man.
Probably 8 inches.
Yeah, that was like 8 inches, and what was it, like $50?
Mm-hmm.
So
60.
I mean, 60.
60.
So that's close to $100 for 8 inches. You're getting 24 inches.
So mathematically, if it's
one of the largest Build-A-Figures, and this is still only about, it's not even like, I think it's probably less than 12 inches. And this was also from like 10 years ago. So, that's not going to happen anymore. So to get a 24-inch figure, that's exclusive. And I mean, let's be honest here. That's Giant-Man's thing, is to be giant. So if you're going to have a Giant-Man, it's going to be 4 times as big as, all your other figures. That's pretty cool. Would it have been more attractive to people to charge $250 and give a special yellow jacket and Hank Pym in a lab coat. Would that have made it more enticing? Possibly. I don't know.
I mean,
but that also
have that
new
scientist body that they're using for Egghead and
Banner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but then again, that's raising the price. Mm-hmm. So I see where they're like, hey, let's give people an inexpensive HasLab for a really cool chance to get this, once in a lifetime character or whatever. I don't know. I was under the impression, maybe I'm totally wrong, if you look at excitement levels of people, Marvel Legends is one of the top brands Hasbro has, followed then probably by Black Series. Okay. But all the failed HasLabs are Black Series and Marvel Legends. Whereas the Vintage Collection has had 3 for 3, including the initial, which was, a difficult sell for a lot of people.
Do you think, though, this could be because of the volume at which, I don't know all the inner workings, but the volume at which they're getting your Marvel Legends or your Black Series, to where it's well, I'll wait for something else. Whereas in the Vintage Collection, you're oh my God, this is amazing. I don't know when I'll get something like this again, so I'm gonna jump on it.
You could be absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Maybe the idea of a Giant-Man figure that's 4 times bigger than everybody else is not a dream for a lot of Marvel Legends collectors. Maybe a car of Ghost Rider, of a weird Ghost Rider that's not the main one, was not a dream project for a lot of those fans. I can tell you, as someone who loves Rebels, the Ghost was absolutely a dream project. That's a Star Wars ship we thought we'd never see in that size and scale. So we always do these videos around HasLabs, and there's always a ton more to say, and it's interesting. And I'm actually very against the whole tiered system. I think the value should be in the product that it is.
I agree too, but I also like the idea of getting all this extra shit.
Right, but it's become this whole other beast. Is Hasbro going to learn now? Are they trying? It's they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, because they're trying to give something that's at a lower price point because that they can't sell in retail. And is that what HasLab is destined to become? Not here's a dream product, but here's an idea we had that we couldn't sell to retail. There is a difference.
But I would almost argue that I feel for certain lines, that should be what you would want. You should want to have this thing of okay, this would not get made because it wouldn't be able to sell in retail.
But Jarmar,
even if it's not a dream.
But again, is there enough of that though?
Yeah, that's fair.
Can they say it wouldn't sell at retail though? At that price point, we bought fucking Turtles for $150.
Well, it's not so much that it couldn't sell, but what retailer would be yeah, let's get,
They can't say space because they do the giant fucking dinosaurs, the Brontosaurus or the long neck.
Yeah, but those move. Move faster. Giant-Man doesn't appeal to a demographic like a dinosaur does.
Oh, I'm aware. But I'm just saying that
are you?
There's no obviously dinosaurs are more popular than any other brand. That's just because dinosaurs, no matter if it's Jurassic Park or something else, will
These
sell.
Are realistic toy dinosaurs. The Jurassic Park and Jurassic World lines outlive the movies always because kids love dinosaurs.
They're the only thing that funds those movies at this point.
And why would you not want to get an awesome... if I had those as a kid, are you kidding me? It just would be amazing. Giant-Man is not that. Also, Giant-Man is going to take up... It is going to take up a lot of space for something that's not as attractive. And look at the volume of Marvel Legends going to clearance. What retailer now is going to say, yes, I absolutely want a $200 Giant-Man? But
they could still do it as an online exclusive then. Have it as Target.
$25 and 6.
But they essentially are. And they're already being shown. It's not as much of an interest as maybe they thought. And that's the whole point of HasLab. My thing, though, is that HasLab should be dream projects, not stuff for not just retail. And that's what we're moving to.
Yeah.
In a lot of the brands. So that's what concerns me. Whereas I do, G.I. Joe right now is kind of the cross of the two. His tank isn't a dream because I had a His tank when I was a kid. I had a HISS tank in the 80s. I had a HISS tank in the 90s. I had a HISS tank in the 2010s. I had a HISS tank from the last movie, which was, I think now at this point still, I guess it's a different decade, but still, I've got a HISS tank for every decade. Dragonflies, less so. But now I just get a bigger one that's a dream.
It's a dream for that line.
A very pleasant afternoon fantasy. Okay, to have, but it's not a dream because I had one.
Let me ask you this then, since you're going on this dream thing, what do they have left that could be a dream project for Marvel Legends?
That's what I was gonna say.
Well, that's essentially it. So because we've already had one fail, we had two huge successes.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wonder if those two huge successes weren't off the backs of seeing things like the secondary market value of the barge and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then we got these massive buy-ins on Sentinels and Galactuses, and especially Galactuses. People were buying multiples to pay for the one that they bought, and they're having a hard time moving them because everybody who wanted one got one, so much so that we got like twice as many more than the people who wanted them.
Yes.
And then we had the Spirit of Vengeance, which didn't do that well. We have this one that didn't do that well. Where can they go? We talked a lot about the Blackbird or a Quinjet or something like that. But as Black Series has told us, and G.I. Joe is its own separate beast right now, God love them. But most people don't want 6-inch vehicles. Star Wars has told us that. I think Marvel is telling us that. So even if they did something like that, I would have to imagine that price point would be insane. And it would have to offer a ton of figures. And I just don't know if collectors would buy it on the sole use of that jet because it's going to take up so much space.
Oh, you're not wrong. Like, realistically, the only dream project left that I can think of would be an X-Jet. And even third-party, like customizers, who are usually able to do stuff slightly cheaper than the, like, HasLabs in some cases, are charging over $1,000 for it. So
yeah,
I don't think it's realistic to get it in scale with the level of detail it deserves to get it at a price without like them either downsizing it or really gutting it like a McFarlane Batmobile. So
what I find interesting, because we rarely talk about it, is the two most recent Transformer HasLabs, because they were both right. It was all positive. It funded very quickly. The tiers were really just add-ons, thrown effects pieces for both. And then even, I thought it was really cool, the last one, the Deathsaurus, once it was closed, they threw in 2 extra Micromasters as a thank you. Like, those were never even offered as a tier. Because that one was so dramaless, because at this point, that's hitting a sweet spot of non-retail and dream project, because we got the ultimate dream project the first time around with Unicron. Okay, that was a whole other thing. There's a lot of drama involved in that. I wasn't part of that. I bought it on the secondary market. We'll move on. I made a mistake. But the 2 ones from Victory are 2 characters that are on a lot of people's wish lists, because they're technically still remakes of Gen 1 characters. They just never made it to the US. But with those Japanese cartoons being available, fans like the idea of those characters. So it's a nice balance, because it's not that it's too big to put at retail. It's absolutely not. It's less than a commander class size. So it's like they're both leader class basically. So it's a $50 price point just sold at a commander price point put at a Titan. Confusing you guys anyway, because I'm saying it all wrong. Anyway, they absolutely could sell this at retail. It's not that it's that big. It's just that it's for the core fan base. Like, this is not going to move in units at Target. It's just not. I'm babbling, but my point is, each HasLab has been a little different, and I don't think you can quite crack it, except that people want exclusive figures, except when they don't.
Pretty simple. How about I'm thinking, like, what could be like a dream project? And I don't know, people love MCU, and I think the most loved, with the
I think
do,
there's still some life left.
Yeah.
In the first 3 phases of movies, the whole Infinity Saga, you could pull something from that And I think you could potentially.
But what?
This is what I was going to recommend, because they haven't done this, but this would be a thing. I don't know why this has turned into how we can fix the HasLab, because it's always the case.
Isn't that what the episode was the first time we did this?
It's every time we talk about the HasLab, we always suggest things, and they're not listening to us. So
maybe they should.
Bad on them. But like a Dio, could it be something with like the portal scene? Like have a way that would be amazing. Can set all of your MCU like Infinity Saga,
even a modular
characters.
I mean, you want to talk about 1/12 scale vehicles taking up too much space. I feel like a battlefield would be damn near impossible to have, like, as a...
not a battlefield.
Not the whole thing, but just like some sort of dial that would incorporate it. And that, like you said, maybe modular, that you can have like 2 halves or something in a way to... Because it will allow you to display those figures, you know. It would be smart if they did it in a way that, like, they know most common, like, bookshelves or a certain width or something like that, where you can fit it on a shelf and, you know, you can put... I don't know. I'm just thinking of, like, something that's not another figure that has to be 24 inches tall with another figure. If you do a Dio, that one... I mean, unless you're NECA, the cost wouldn't be insane, maybe. But then also you could say, like, oh, well, we'll throw in, like, I don't know, Thanos with the battle damage, something that they haven't done before, something like that, to where they're not making a new tooling for a new figure, but kind of like just taking something old, because they've already tried to sell that Thanos, like, I don't know, 16,000 times at this point, but like just have something else with it. Get them out of the direction of making a vehicle and or a figure.
What if they just give us the space wheels?
I mean, sure.
I think a diorama would be really cool. Even if they didn't go MCU, I think they could definitely do like an Avengers setup. An X-Men Danger Room would be awesome.
Danger Room would be feasible. Some people have said X-Mansion. I don't think you can do that.
Yeah.
Not the whole mansion, but maybe like...
But I feel like you're not gonna please everyone, because then it's gonna be like like the NECA fucking sewer, where it's like, well, what if I don't get this or that?
Look at the kitty cat house.
The Thundercats?
Thundercats.
Yes.
Thing,
the kitty cat house.
The lair.
You make it sound like a fucking litter box.
Like, you could have like that kind of that front facing display of a cool mansion, which had maybe like little like windows and stuff you could do stuff to, but then when you turn it around, there's maybe a couple classrooms, but then the whole danger room takes up like the bottom side. Like, that would be really cool. I mean,
so Barbie's Dream
House,
like, essentially.
Yeah, but for X-Men. Like, I think dioramas for Marvel Legends is the way to go. I think that's the best idea that you could do, because people love recreating scenes. They love setting their figures up in great moments. You love doing that. So we had a whole episode about dioramas. That's a dream project.
That's
as far
it.
As I'm concerned.
New York scene.
New York City.
The whole city.
The whole city. But the scene.
If they get 80,000 backers, you get entire like fucking Broadway.
If we hit 85,000, you're gonna get the original Leo's Pizza. If we hit 89,000, you get Leo's original pizza.
But no, like the
90,000 though,
scene.
We'll give you fucking Times Square.
There you go.
That would just be, to me, that would be something cool. Like, you already have your Avengers in like this little pose. It doesn't even have to be
like New York City. It could just be a generic city like dial that's long.
Kitchen with like a street and a building facade that maybe goes up so far.
Yeah.
Lots of places to.
I'm thinking more iconic, but yeah.
Essentially, do something like the NECA Dio for the...
Like the street Dio.
Yeah, the NECA street Dios, but like instead it's going to be an actual street. Like, you have a strip of like road, sidewalk, a facade for the like walls and stuff that go up high. Yeah. Maybe you can like stack them or not. Like,
that's going to be probably $400.
Right.
You might get a figure
but it'll
with
probably
that,
be a lot bigger than a sewer.
You might get a figure with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know... It would be honestly be really cool then to throw in things like the Tracksuit Mafia, something like that. Random thugs would be really cool to throw into something like that, especially a Hell's Kitchen scenario. or
battle damaged bits
Spider-Man.
for the walls in the street that are swappable out.
Yeah, and then places like wall webbing where that characters can fit in that you could attach to the walls. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Police officer figures. Those would be kind of cool, like classic style. Let's not get but like with the hats and the jacket
and the blue shirt, the light blue shirt,
classic style. Yeah, not like
he doesn't want them to like beat up the thugs in the middle of the street. He wants them to be like, "Hey, you stop!" and then like sit there and wait for Spider-Man to show up.
Right. Stuff like that. But I think that would be amazing for.
We solved it.
Well, and honestly, now that we're solving that, that's probably the way to go with Black Series 2, because again, I don't think those customers want vehicles per se, because they do take up so much space, but little dioramas would be really cool. Or just leave that alone to the vintage collection and let us take it. That's fine. That's fine too. Ooh. Because I think Star Wars Vintage Collection is still another. I think they could go on endlessly, with ships and.
Well, they have the
I'm still waiting for them to do like a bigger, more in scale Falcon.
It doesn't get much bigger than the BMF, dude. That's perfect.
Is it?
Yes.
I thought it was still like smaller than it was supposed to be.
You can't outdo this one. You really can't.
I'll take your word for it.
It's right there.
I've never seen it in person. I just thought when it came out that it was like a.
You might be thinking of one of the other previous. No, it's not a 1-to-1 with the figures. I mean, it's not, but it's still really big. And you can actually stand, 4 people in the cockpit.
Death Star takes up the entire basement.
Honestly, that's what people have been talking about for a long time. I think they definitely could do a Death Star. That would be a perfect one to make more modular. But have different sections and walls and different.
You have to buy
walkways.
100 of them to build the entire Death Star.
Yeah,
each one comes with a spherical.
Yeah, I just don't know how that would work.
And you just piece it all together.
Ghost was revealed. A lot of people did think it was going to be an Ewok village, and I think that would be another really cool one to do. But if they aren't doing it for the 40th anniversary, I just don't think it's going to happen.
I think until this new phase of Star Wars starts to settle down, it's all going to be based on new stuff.
Probably. Probably right.
They're trying to keep it with whatever's like currently going on. Like the Ghost happens to be coming out or going in for pre-order as Ahsoka's airing, and Ahsoka's basically Rebels season 6 or whatever.
Could have timed it a little bit better. Like by the time the campaign was over, I think we saw the Ghost for like if you had to watch that episode that night. Mm-hmm. That the campaign ended was the only time you saw the Ghost in the show. So they. But
you did see a couple, or you did see one of the parts of the Ghost.
You saw the Phantom. Yeah. You saw the Phantom 2. Yeah. The other thing that really did suck. This is slightly off topic, but I will put this out. The Boba Fett throne room, or the Jabba's throne room, which went up for pre-order February 9th, 2022. Okay,
forget that day.
22.
A year and a half ago.
They even put in the original solicitation when the ship date was going to be and the charge date. So they have known about this for like literally a year and a half. They put the Ghost like a few days around it. Now they moved the throne room for like a week. They moved it out a week. But when you get your $500 charge taken out in another week, you're going to have a $220 charge taken out.
Oh, Throne Room was Pulse exclusive, not HasLab. That's why.
It was not a HasLab. It was one of those. They were kind of testing this in between. Mm-hmm. Not a HasLab, but bigger than.
Oh, you mean like Giant-Man?
Could be. But they're trying to make it fun as a HasLab.
So, I guess the final question really comes down to two things. Let's start here. Do we think this funds based off where it is now with 40 days left? I can say as far as discussions about it on the internet, it has been more positive than negative, but it hasn't been like the talk of the town. Most of the things I see are more so the memes about the shadow of him with people photoshopping in his dick. Beyond that,
lean into it.
Beyond that, it's a lot of people being like, this is awesome, with a handful of people being like, but what about my old one? It's going to be worthless now.
Welcome to action figures.
So, like, it hasn't been necessarily a negative response, but it has been very much a lukewarm. Like, people aren't talking about it like they usually are. Usually, even if they're bad, they're still fucking talking about nonstop. And the only things I mostly see are memes, more so than the actual discussion about it. So I think that unless they announce or either change some goals around or announce maybe a tier 3 figure or something like that, I think it's going to struggle just to get funded.
I think it's going to struggle. I think ultimately it'll hit. I'm basing this strictly on Rancor because it was overly negative and it came close.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say ultimately Ant-Man is going to go through. I think a lot of people, because the tiers are not exciting, I think most people will wait until the last couple of days.
Yeah, because there's no like, oh, but I want to wait to see if there's funds. It's like, oh, I don't care if that.
Yeah, like if I was the buyer, like if these pieces didn't come out, like, oh well. Like,
see, like the scroll head is cool. Like I think that is great because if they do like an entire line of Avengers that are scrolls, that'd be cool to have a display where they're fighting them. But I think because they don't have that announced as in the pipeline, it doesn't.
Yeah, I think they've only done like the Elektra and the Spider-Woman.
Yeah,
with those parts.
Oh, they do have that 2-pack that's coming out, but it's like the Super Supreme scroll and some other scroll. Or it's already out, something like that.
I think the Super Supreme one is the one that's in the Spider-Woman look, right? Okay. Isn't that it?
I can't remember. It was like some big beefy motherfucker. I don't know. I'm not a scroll expert.
I'm not either.
Scrollologist.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it does get backed just because 4,000 is still quite far out. Well, 4,500. We'll round up. That's still like close to halfway.
About 5,500 to back.
And it still has 40 days, which it's going to be a long 40 days of very few updates. And then again, those last few days. Because, like, shit. Like, the Ghost, like, it funded within, like a couple of days.
Yeah, it was not very long at all.
And then it sat there. And then it barely cleared the first tier, which was, like, 13,000. And then we hit the second, third tier within like the day before it ended. And I think we ended up with, because the last one was at 17,000 and people thought we weren't going to hit it. And it ended at 21. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay. So, I mean, I don't think there'll be 21,000.
Oh, no. I don't think they'll hit any of the tiers.
I think they'll hit at least one.
So you think we're going to get the zombie head?
Yeah, 12,000. I think it hits 12,000.
I think it maybe
put that out there.
Hits 10.5. I don't think it's hitting.
That one will end up being worth something because not enough people got it.
Mm-hmm.
So
here's your chance, people. You want a HasLab that might make you $1,200. There you go.
And just as a contrarian, I think it'll hit all the tiers because it's only 2, right?
So far,
do we know it?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it will.
I feel like they conservatively announced 2 because 1, I'm pretty sure they said they have no intentions of doing figures because the figures they want to actually do in the line, and 2,
there's that too. Like there is a little bit of a danger putting certain figures behind a paywall, and
I have a solution for this.
Okay.
I don't mean to cut you off, and we'll wrap it up. Yeah. But if they just do it like this is first run, it's coming out in this, and then we want to release it later, but you're getting it first run. It's like a first run comic.
That's not enough.
I think you run a danger in there in nullifying what HasLab means.
I think
could affect future backings.
You spice it up. You give it some special accessories. You pack it more than you're going to actually pack the figure. So let's face it, the figures that come with
first run.
That's not a first run. A first run means you get it first through the HasLab. I'm saying you get it with extra stuff because the normal release is going to come with like one extra hand that's a fist, one extra hand that's a sprawled open hand, so you don't get 2 of each, and maybe if you're lucky, a fucking weapon.
Because that's where it's gotten different because Razor Crest gave you 3 figures, 2 carded, 1 not. all of them were repaints in the existing main line, and you got extra accessories or different colors. But, however, for what we're told, the Ghost is exclusive. Those particular looks, those designs, those are exclusives. The way they worded it when it initially rolled out was that these were exclusive card backs, and everybody was like, "Oh, they're just going to release the figures," which would make sense. But Hasbro has since come before the campaign ended and said those were exclusive. So
I see what you mean, but I think if they want to make it,
I agree with you.
You know,
I don't think something should be put behind a paywall like that, because here's my ultimate dilemma. I'm going to get this great ship with these figures that I'm not going to open because I'm a carded vintage collector.
Person. I can't get more to put with it.
Right. So I would love it if they offered me as a backer the opportunity to buy a loose set.
But that's going to be loose. Okay, I like that.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
You don't even have to do that. First off, they wouldn't be loose. They'd be in the little egg roll wrappers. Let's get it right.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
And two, the thing about that is these looks are from season 3 or 4 of Rebels. So they're gonna make most of those characters in their current day looks from Ahsoka.
They will. They already
so you could just use them for that.
Right. No, I know.
You just wouldn't have what's his name?
Shut your mouth. That's part of it.
Jesus Christ.
No, but that is what I will do. Is it will be my live action ship, but it is a little bit of a bummer as someone who basically would put Rebels, underneath the original trilogy. Like, I like it more than Clone Wars. I think it's my favorite spin-off media. Okay, so if that's the case, it's a little bit of a bummer for me that I only have these carded figures that I'm not going to open because I'm a carded vintage collector person. And this was the only way to get these figures, was to spend $500, which is why these figures are going to be outrageous on the secondary market. They will be 100%. They will be, because the Barge Yak Face still goes for like $200 on the secondary market, and it is a repack. It's only the card back that makes it special. So when you're talking about a figure that a card back is special and the sculpts are special, that's a recipe for major money. And they've already shown, we saw the 3 and 4, the HasLab exclusive Hera and the TV show Hera, and they're completely different figures, same character, but the sculpting and tooling is all different. So it's wild. It's wild. Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about butter sausage? No.
Is that
a sex thing?
Is it a Star Wars character? I didn't know if butter sausage was like best friends with Yak Face.
I mean, it's very possible. I guess the TikToks that I see are not what you guys see. So
apparently not.
True.
There's a great one with Gary Busey in an interview, and he's fucking off his rocker.
He's always off his rocker,
but like way more so than normal. Like, I gotta find it.
Well, while you're there on TikTok.com /
We'll get to that in a minute. Jesus Christ. So the last thing then would be, let's say this thing does get to the point where it'd get a tier 3. What do you think they're going to do for tier 3?
They should give us a Hank Pym.
I was going to say either Hank Pym or just a tiny version of this figure with obviously not the articulated fingers. Because I feel like
they could do that. That absolutely is something that could easily, well, not easily, but should be done as well. So yeah, I agree with that. I would like to see Hank Pym because I don't think he's ever been released. But yes, a small version of this, at least a Hank Pym recently.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Well, I just thought I saw.
I mean, technically, the classic Iron Man they just released is, I'm pretty sure, Hank Pym. It just doesn't come with an unmasked head, to my knowledge.
The Iron Man?
What?
Did you say Iron Man?
Ant-Man. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's why I was
sorry. This episode ran like 10 minutes longer than I planned it to, and I'm already tired.
Sorry, we wanted to give you more content.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it'll come with. That's what it's gonna come with. I have no clue.
Maybe it needs to come with Giant Woman.
Well, people have been like, I want Wasp. I'm like, why wouldn't you just want that to be in the normal line? Especially with like a key character like that would just completely like fuck you over if you don't want a $200 giant man, like, but you still want Wasp and Ant-Man. Like, I don't know. But before we close out, Nate, Patreon exclusive comment input.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I was ready, and then I wasn't. All right.
Only that little bit
Still
left.
There.
Just a smidge.
On the HasLab, it's disappointing that the whole point is to build a classic Avengers team. And all the promo pictures show the classic Avengers team. But the Black Widow figure is a $60 eBay exclusive. If Target doesn't get this out widely before the end of the HasLab order period, then I may not back it. Terrible decision on their part to make this an exclusive when it's integral to HasLab. Buddy, you need to come talk to me because aren't these clogging end caps at Target? This Black Widow figure, I saw a bunch of them.
I haven't been going to Target a lot lately, so I don't know.
I haven't been going as much because I don't have as many in my work area that I used to. I used to have 4, and now I don't. I only have 2, but I haven't really been stopping. So maybe I'm wrong, but I just remember when they first came out. I mean, they were out.
This is the newest one, right?
Yeah, it is a Target exclusive. So, but I mean,
even then, usually Target exclusives have been clogging shelves anyway.
I would say, Mr. Taunt, to wait a little bit and see if they. I just can't imagine they don't get a restock. Usually Target exclusives. I just think I don't know. They got a lot of Avengers right now in those white boxes. The last time I was there, I saw a lot of those.
And I think that's going to be the Hulk 2-pack.
Yeah, because that's one of those anniversary waves, like they did with the 60th anniversary of Spider-Man, or they did the 80th anniversary Marvel, or the MCU 10 years. I think a lot of those will go on clearance, but then for a short time, but then they'll go up on the secondary market because they are great characters and great versions and blah 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 blah. It's the Marvel Legends way.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, just wait a year or 6 months, and it'll be up on Nerdzoic.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Watch our episode last week or next week, or
next
one of the
week,
weeks that's on.
In the
next
past.
Week. Yeah. Maybe find your own Vinny. I don't know. But
that's a good point.
I would say, I mean, I definitely agree with you that is integral, and yes, it needs to be with the HasLab, but that is not unlike other things. I mean, there were many characters that interacted with the barge that ended up being exclusive to different retailers, or even the Razor Crest and things like that. So that's not out of the realm of possibilities to have figures that interact with stuff as exclusives at other retailers. So,
also, isn't that one just a updated face of the last comic book one they did?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't pay attention to the comic stuff anymore. It just became too overwhelming, and it now, I was trying to keep up on it, and it was overwhelming. I go walk in now, and I'm like, I don't have a clue what's going on. All right, there's 3 different waves at once, and
I just remember seeing, I think it was Robo talking about it, and he mentioned that it's the same figure but updated. It has some new.
It very well could be. I mean,
most
of those new MCU figures that are coming out are existing figures with new paint and maybe with a couple new extra parts. So, and this is totally off topic, but that's a line that isn't a wave that's for everybody. Yeah. That's a wave for people who either missed those characters or want to upgrade their figures. I looked at them all and went, you know what? There's nothing here that I have to upgrade on, so I'm good. Yeah, that Bruce banner is nice, but I have the original one. It's not the greatest face sculpt. It's a fine face sculpt, but the paint apps, it looked like Mark Ruffalo did. You can tell who it is. Do I need to spend $25 to upgrade a Bruce banner that probably isn't going to stay on display anyway? No.
That's fair.
Sure. Yeah.
I just should have sold it before they announced the new one. Oh well, what are you gonna do?
Oh well. All right. Well, on that note, let us know in the comments below where you stand on the GiantMan HasLab. If you're funding it, if you're not, if you think it was a poor choice, if so, why? Also, if you enjoyed this video,
don't forget. I mean, I get that HasLabs only come around maybe like once a year or so, but we live in a world now where like they put pre-orders out a year in advance. Like, if it's not for you, it's not for you. It doesn't have to be for you. You can not like it or dislike it, but that doesn't mean you have to hate it. Yeah. Like, largely to me,
I hate it.
Yeah, like I'm like, okay, I'm not going to order it. I really don't care, but I hope it funds for the people who want their GiantMan.
Very true. Very true. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. Helps us out here at the channel and gets you much toy-related content in your feed. If you're already a fan of the channel and like to help support us, you can head over to patreon.com/Modern Toy Fair. Got a bunch of different tiers of different rewards, including getting episodes early and even getting Patreon exclusive episodes of the podcast. You can check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Modern Toy Fair. You can check Jarmar over at TikTok at Jarmar_games. And Nate, what you got for us?
So I just want to point out something in particular. I've been rewatching Community on. I believe it's on. I've been watching it on Netflix, but I believe it is also on
Hulu.
Hulu. But I just want to point out, Basic Lupine Urology is the name of the episode, season 3, episode 17. It is a parody episode of Law and Order. It is maybe, quite possibly, the greatest parody I've ever seen. And I don't mean this as it's a great episode of Community. I mean, it is one of the greatest parodies I've ever seen on how they nail the thing that they're parodying, which in this case, it's Law and Order, from the look, the setup, the characters. Unfortunately for them, because they were also on NBC, the music, the logos, everything like that. But even down to the storyline, a friend of mine who can always pick out the guilty party in a Law and Order episode based on this weird formula was able to pick out the person who was at fault in this episode using that same methodology. If you've never seen the show, it's going to be kind of hard to jump in necessarily right at that episode because it is a very odd, quirky show. But at the same time, if you are a fan of television or parody or anything like that, watch that episode. Episode 17 of season 3, Basic Lupine Urology. Because every episode is named off a class of some kind. More than likely, like Lupine Urology would be werewolf dicks, or the study of werewolf, how they pee, and their basic penis workings. So that's not a real class, but you get what I'm saying.
I mean, could be.
Alrighty. Well, on that note, we see you next week. Same toy time, same Toy Fair channel. Thank you for watching.